Well, I think it's important for India to educate people around the world on what the nature of these terrorist attacks has been. I did have a call with Prime Minister Modi. I think Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio were on the phone. I'm sure many other countries were calling to see what they might be able to do. President Musharraf was how secure were Pakistan's nuclear capabilities.
Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much for speaking with ANI, sir. So it has been almost 2 weeks since India hit terror infrastructures in Pakistan and Pakistan infrastructures on occupied Kashmir. Tell us about your assessment of Operation Sindur and India's success in destroying Islamabad centers of terror.
Well, I think India was certainly entitled to act in self-defense against locations inside Pakistan that where the terrorist attack was planned and carried out from. And it's obviously a significant issue when a country either can't control that kind of terrorist activity going on its territory or indeed may be contributing to it. So India's action, I think, was entirely justifiable. But it does raise the question whether there's any possibility of persuading the Pakistani government that this is not ultimately in their interest and could lead to much worse consequences for them if they don't get it under control. I know this is a long-standing issue, but the escalation in the military response and the back and forth between India and Pakistan before the ceasefire was agreed to was certainly a significant cut above what happened in 2019, 6 years ago, when there was a similar terrorist attack in Kashmir. And I think the other lesson to carry away from this is the fact that Chinese military planes were supplied to Pakistan, were prominent in Pakistan's response. And I think that signifies the growing Chinese influence inside Pakistan, particularly in the military, which increases the threat to India, certainly on its western flank, but I think should trouble all of us as an indication of China's efforts to assert greater and greater influence over Pakistan in the future.
Ambassador Bolton, you are somebody who has worked with the Trump administration very closely, and you know how Trump has been making claims for ceasefire between India and Pakistan, which of course India has denied several times now. How do you see Trump's claim, and what is your assessment of the reason behind his claims?
Well, I can say this, it's nothing personal to India. This is Donald Trump, who takes credit for everything. I think he did have a call with Prime Minister Modi. I think Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio were on the phone. I'm sure many other countries were calling to see what they might be able to do. And it's typical Trump that he would jump in before everybody else and take credit. So it may be irritating, probably is irritating to many people, but it's nothing that's intended to be a step against India. It's just Trump being Trump.
Ambassador, Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir has been promoted to the topmost military rank of Field Marshal. It's an honor given only in the rarest of occasions and or achieving a stellar operations record throughout a career in armed forces. This despite India giving a befitting reply. What sort of messaging do you think the world will perceive on this, especially when most of the world knows that it's army that runs the country?
Well, I think it's potentially a disturbing sign. Obviously, internal dissent in Pakistan is repressed. Imran Khan remains in prison, and I ultimately don't think this is in Pakistan's own interest. And this is certainly something I think the U.S. government should press on them, that the continued level of hostility here is just going to impede Pakistan's development, as it has for many years already. But it worries me that it's still another opportunity for the Chinese to take advantage of these developments that gives them additional leverage inside Pakistan as well.
Right. Ambassador, you have also served as the United States ambassador to the United Nations. And we know that India has been ramping efforts for UN listing of TRF, the Resistant Front, which is an elite proxy, a terror outfit that claimed responsibility for Pahalgam terror attack. How significant is this designation of the terror outfit at the UN is according to you for the world?
Well, I think whenever you get the UN to acknowledge anything as a terrorist organization, it's a pretty significant development. So I think India is justified in seeking to do it, and I think it's also part of an educational effort that's important for India. When it takes retaliatory action for a terrorist strike, it's important to get all the facts out in public and show to the world why this is justified, and designating this or other groups for their terrorist activities, I think makes India's case to the world.
Right. Ambassador, Indian Defense Minister has slammed Pakistan's ability to handle nuclear weapons and raised questions if nuclear weapons are safe in the hands of such irresponsible and rogue nation. What is your comment on that, since the Indian Prime Minister has himself said that India won't bend to any nuclear blackmail from Pakistan?
Yeah, look, I think the security of nuclear weapons is a very high priority for the United States anywhere in the world. And since I served in the George W. Bush administration at the time of 9/11 and went with then Secretary of State Colin Powell to Pakistan and then India, one of the subjects that Powell raised specifically with then President Musharraf was how secure were Pakistan's nuclear capabilities. And we were assured that they were in good hands. I think it's something that has remained a concern, and particularly given India's common border with Pakistan, it's a very important concern for India as well. So it's not something that you can ever say we can rest easy. We're completely relaxed that Pakistan has it under control, because the risk of these nuclear weapons falling into terrorist hands or irresponsible commanders making their own decisions about using nuclear weapons would be very, very dangerous.
Pakistan relied heavily on Turkish drones, fighter jets during the conflict with India. However, these systems proved ineffective against India's defense capabilities. What is your assessment of this, and also on Turkey, Ankara's support to Islamabad militarily?
Well, I think Turkey's drones are not the most sophisticated, at least the last I heard. They actually worked pretty well for Ukraine and Russia because they were so unsophisticated the Russian radar couldn't pick them up. But Ukraine itself now has developed their own capability, and the battle there really is a research laboratory for drone technology. I think Turkey has, under Erdogan, the Erdogan government has very expansive ambitions around the world, not just in its immediate neighborhood, but Erdogan has neo-Ottomanist aspirations, and I think the kind of support that they may be talking about with Pakistan is something that bears very close attention going forward, certainly.
Right. Ambassador, just last question. I know you have another interview. India is sending an all-party delegation, including members of the United Nations Security Council, that includes USA as well, to convey India's message of zero tolerance against terrorism following the Pahalgam terror attack and Operation Sindur. How do you see this outreach as far as exposing Pakistan on the global stage is concerned?
Well, I think it's important for India to educate people around the world on what the nature of these terrorist attacks has been, because it's unacceptable for innocent civilians to be threatened and harmed by terrorist attacks. At the UN, I can tell you from my own experience, it was always difficult to get people to focus on it, because one person's terrorist is another person's liberation movement. So India's borne a considerable number of terrorist attacks, not just in Kashmir, but across the country against Parliament, as we know. So I think it's in a particularly good place to help explain what this threat is to others and to try and get their support. So definitely worth doing.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for your time, sir. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. Stay in touch. Okay.